Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jill, time management strategist, author, and award-winning speaker, and advocate for all things growth in motherhood. A quick reminder, if you are listening to this episode, you can also catch us on YouTube and see the conversation that I'm having today with Valerie. Valerie is a productivity specialist and a certified fair play method facilitator. She helps moms gain a sense of support, spend more time with their families, and end their days feeling accomplished. Who doesn't want that, right? With a background in mental health and corporate training, she's here to guide you towards a better relationship with time. And today we're talking all about the mental load of motherhood and how this fair play method can help. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so interested to speak with you because I have not heard of the fair play method. And I just love that you're helping moms in the same way I am, right? We're both here to support them, giving them tools and productivity and time and all of these things. So I'm always curious, like, how did you get into this work? Where did this all start for you?
Yeah. So I left the corporate world when my daughter was born. She's now 11, almost 12, and opened my own professional organizing business. I wanted to work in that field for a while. And that business over time grew into what I do today. And that came from one, a love of reading time management books. I love Laura Vanderkam, Julie Morgenstern. I just love reading all of that stuff. Don't ask me why. I just do.
I'm with you.
And
I get
then
it.
especially Laura Vanderkam, because it's just so like practical and like based in reality, right? There was also just lots of listening to my friends talk about how busy they were. Like we use the word busy like a badge of honor. Like I'm so busy, and I could never quite tell if they were happy about it or just felt like this was the way life is and they couldn't do anything about it. But like it never sat right with me. And so over time, my business has morphed into what it is today because I feel like we moms are conditioned to just do all of this stuff. We feel like we have to go big for the holidays and go big for birthdays and go big for all of this stuff and sign our kids up for all of this stuff. And if you love doing all of that, please continue. But if you're doing it and you resent it and you're over it and you're tired of it, like we can do something different. But I feel like we just don't feel as moms like we have time to sit back and think about that and look at what that looks like. And then the past few years with the pandemic, I think it just all got worse. We just took on so much more and we're fried. And so I come at my business from feeling like moms do too much. We've been conditioned to do everything and we can do better for ourselves and for society.
Yeah, I hear that and I feel that so much. I see that in my group of friends, within my community of clients as well. We're all burnt out. And
Mhm.
I mean, it has so much to do with this mental load that we carry, right? Let's dive into that. Like, what is the mental load of motherhood?
Yeah. The mental load of motherhood is the 85 tabs you have open in your brain or the
Guilty.
ticker tape of just constant stuff, right? It's like, who needs toothpaste and what kind of toothpaste do they like, right? My kids like very different toothpaste. So we have to remember that. Who likes which kind of mustard or condiments are we out of toilet paper? Is it time to register our kids for school? Who's buying school supplies? Like, do their shoes fit? Do we need to go shoe shopping before all of this? Like, as we're recording this, my kids have been in school for 2.5 weeks. Some kids are going back this week. Like, there is a lot that comes with getting kids ready for school and getting back into that routine. And it's all the stuff that isn't, you don't see it, right? Like you can see a loaded dishwasher, but somebody has to remember that you need detergent and the dishwasher needs to happen and all of these tasks. And it's exhausting because it's in our brain. So nobody knows it's happening. They just, there's toothpaste in their kit in their bathroom and they're like, oh, this is great. I can brush my teeth now versus, if it didn't happen, it'd be a problem, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially if it's the wrong kind. That's something
Right.
that I see all the time with my spouse. I'll put in the grocery list because we have this like shared grocery list. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
kids toothpaste, and then he'll come home with like the wrong one because he didn't know, he didn't think about it. I'm the one
Mm-hmm.
who has that information, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Wow. How did we get here? Like, how did we? We take all this on, and is there a way to reverse this? Can we back out of this situation we've got ourselves in?
Yeah, yes. So we got here, this could be a whole like multiple series of conversations. Really just over years and decades of all of this, like we as women are conditioned from a very young age to do all of this work, right? We're given dolls as kids and play kitchens and kind of pushed into this role of caretaking, and not so much for the men on that side. Um, and then over time, we watched that, we witnessed it in our own families, depending on, you know, how you grew up with your parents, kind of who was doing what. Society makes it very hard for um, that equity to happen. So when you have kids, mom's going to be the one who's home on maternity leave if she's lucky. Um, it's very unlikely that your partner has paternity leave or can take it if he does have it. And so mom is home doing all of this stuff and getting practice at changing diapers and feeding the kids and packing the diaper bag and doing all of this work. And so then we're just told through all of this, well, you're just better at it. Like you're naturally better, which is a whole lot of baloney. We've just had more practice, but it's just easier for us. Like we see our partner struggling to pack the diaper bag and get out the door, we just take over and do it. And so they don't have that practice. And so then it just kind of spirals from there,
That
if you
makes
will. There's
sense.
the short answer to the how did we get here?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I'm totally guilty of the swoop in and save.
Mm-hmm.
I do that with my
Mm-hmm.
kids too, even though I know
Mm-hmm.
better. It's a
Yeah.
really hard habit to break because, like you said, we're sort of like culturally trained to do it.
Right. And we think that it's just a part of who we are versus well, I've just been doing this a lot more. I have more practice.
Yeah. So how do we then is it a stepping back from it, or like how do we give our spouses the tools to take on some of this? How do we give our kids when they're old enough some of the tools to take on some of this load?
Mm-hmm. I think the first step is noticing it, noticing that it's a problem, that it's something you want to change in your life. And then that's where the fair play method comes in. So this is not my method. This is a book. It's based on a book by Eve Rodsky. And she developed she dealt with all of this in her own life and watched her friends deal with all of this. And she has great stories in the book about kind of how all of this came to be. But she developed this method that really gets you and your partner on the same team. It gives you tools to talk about the dishes where it's you and your partner against the dishes versus you and your partner fighting about the dishes.
Hmm.
It gives you a chance to talk about your family values and your family goals and like why is it important to have a clean kitchen, or what do we want our kids and family birthday parties to look like? What do we value here? Or do we want to go overboard? What does even going overboard mean? But like, we have friends who love throwing big birthday parties for their kids. There's always a theme, there's always party favors. They invite all of their friends and family. I would much rather have my kids have a sleepover with a couple of good friends, have a movie night, like something much quieter. Maybe for, you know, the big birthdays, 13, 16, 18, we throw bigger parties. But that for me, having my kids spend time with some of their close friends versus 30 people in the house just feels better. But having those conversations with your partner and your kids as they get older can help you figure out what all that looks like. So if you love throwing big birthday parties and your kids love it, then carry on. I've had friends who they used to do very elaborate birthday parties, and she would do all of these creative things and really fun party favors. And then somewhere in the middle, I think of the pandemic in the last couple of years, like threw a much smaller birthday party. And her daughter was like, that was really fun. And like, there was a noticeable shift in the response. And she's like, then why have I been throwing these big over the top parties if she didn't really wasn't invested in them? But we don't know if we don't have those conversations, right? So having those conversations really starts with your values and or your goals. So if values feels way too big, what do you want life to look and feel like right now? As we're heading into the fall season, we're getting back to school. What do you want life to look and feel like right now? And are all of the things that we are doing, the activities we're signed up for, the tasks we're doing around the house, do they fit within that feeling and those goals.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think that, you know, as you were describing this, the initial thought that came up for me was, well, what if your spouse also doesn't want to engage in this type of conversation? And then I thought, what person, like everybody wants to be asked their opinion. Everybody, I mean, generally wants to have an input and have their
Mhm.
their needs met and have their interests and their preferences, you know,
Mhm.
considered. So it feels like a really big win-win. Is this a big piece of the work that you're doing with your clients? Like, do you work with both the spouses?
I do not currently as we're recording this, although I'm leaning towards that direction because I think it is very important to get both partners involved. And I think those initial conversations can feel tricky because we're not taught how to have those conversations. And I hear from a lot of moms, they'd love to have this conversation, but I don't want to I don't want to offend him. I don't want to upset him. I don't want to put him on the defensive. And that's a very valid concern, right? Everything has been functioning just fine on their side, potentially. And so, on one hand, why would they want things to change? Why would I want to be doing more around the house if I don't have to be? But there is a lot of humanity in both partners being involved in the household and in the kids' lives, and it leads to a happier marriage, to happier relationships with your kids, just overall general health of the family functions better when everybody is involved in the household tasks and contributing to that. And it's not just mom doing everything because mom is exhausted and over it. And it's impacting like our physical health and our mental health to be taking all of this on. We don't have the structural supports in society to support us the way that we need to. And we can get on the same team as our partner so that it's slightly easier,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Makes so much sense. And so what are some of the strategies that you use with your clients to help them like remove some of this overwhelm that moms are experiencing from just the mental load and everything else? Once we sort of bring in the fair
Mhm.
play method and get working with that, what are some of the top strategies that you've got?
Yeah. So one of the very first things is that values appraisal. So what is really important to us? Because every decision stems from that. So understanding, we keep our kitchen clean because we value a clean kitchen and we value simplicity and wanting to get meals on the table quickly. And we can't if we're constantly cleaning the kitchen first. So what does that look like? Um, Maybe we value community. And so, like in our household, we may watch one of our neighbor's kids one day a week while her sibling is at soccer practice and she doesn't want to go. And so we're happy to have her come over here because we're supporting our neighbors in a way that makes sense for us um, in that community piece. Maybe we love being physically active. And so what does that look like? Are we signing up for sports? Are we doing weekend family hikes? And you're making decisions based upon what those values or those goals are. And then you're putting that into practice. And then on the nitty-gritty side, and I'll keep talking about dishes because we all have to do dishes. They're always there. So in our household, we decided several years ago to split dishes where Sunday through Saturday, one of us, my husband or I, is fully in charge of the dishes. And one of the parts of the fair play is called MSC, or the minimum standard of care. And this is like your agreed upon values of how something is completed. And this is not like, well, I prefer the dishes clean, the kitchen cleaner in this way, I win. It is a conversation held between the two of you of what a completed task looks like. When is it done and how, maybe not necessarily how is it done, but what does complete look like? So in our household for the kitchen, it is whoever's in charge of the dishes is in charge of loading and unloading, hand washing everything that needs to be hand washed, and make sure that at the end of the day, the kitchen is clean enough that whoever's making breakfast doesn't have to clean the kitchen.
Hmm.
And that you cannot leave a big mess for whoever takes over on Sunday to deal with. So we've had plenty of times where I or my husband is still doing dishes Sunday morning because we just fell behind. Now there can be exceptions, right? If there are days where somebody is sick or there's just kind of a glitch in the system, you can step in for each other. But like when it is not my week, I that is just, the kitchen is not my problem. And then if something does come up, we can talk about it on a weekly check-in. So having a weekly check-in to bring those conversations, instead of in the moment when you're angry, you bring that concern. So, hey, 3 days this week, I got up and I had to clean some counter space so that I could do dishes. Like, what's going on here? And having an open conversation about it versus getting very angry about it in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
which is practice, right? We all know that things are going to happen. This is a new habit for everybody. We're in the process of getting my 9-year-old to empty the dishwasher. This is one of her jobs, which kind of messes up sometimes when we want to load and empty the dishwasher of like, well, we need to leave it because this is her responsibility. And we're working this year on getting her to notice it. So it's not us saying, you need to go empty the dishwasher. It's kind of, she comes home from school and knows that's one of her tasks to take care of. We're working on that. Like, I know it's going to be a while of us doing it with her. But it's having these conversations of all of these tasks. So like the trash, right? I hear all of the time of like a mom will ask, or a woman will ask her partner to take out the trash. And if it's not done right then, they get angry and just do it themselves. Versus let's have that conversation of, when does the trash need to be taken out? What are all of the steps that are involved? Because it's not just taking out the trash. Like, where are all of the trash cans in the house? Do they all need to be emptied every week? When does the trash need to go out? We finally got to where, if it's you're in charge of dishes, you are also in charge of taking the trash out and then taking the barrel out. Our barrels go out on Monday. So by then you need to have emptied all the trash in the house and taken it out. Because we used to just let the trash like pile up and then eventually somebody would get to it, right? And that's frustrating for everybody. But then when you have those conversations and okay, the trash is going to be dealt with, then it's not just, I need you to do it right now. That's kind of what Eve calls a randomly assigned task, or a rat, and that can cause problems in there too. And so it's being aware of all of this and then having those conversations so that everybody is involved and we all know what's going on and when things are going to happen, and then continually checking in to make sure things are working. We started with the dishwasher and we layered on some of that other stuff because it just made sense that like the trash needed to be dealt with. Let's assign somebody to deal with that. Let's, just kind of, you layer on and do it as whatever makes sense in your household. You're not going to go through every task and like magically fix it overnight or over a long weekend. Like, you need to start small, make it work, and then layer it on over time.
Mm-hmm. I love all these ideas because I have been in all of these situations, and I'm sure most of the listeners can relate as well, where like we'll just do it because we asked and didn't get done right that minute. So we just do it. Or there's a miscommunication or lack of communication about what the minimum standard is. Like, does taking the trash out mean a fresh bag goes in the bin, or does it literally just mean the trash is at the door? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when is it complete? I think those are really important conversations to have early in any relationship. And when you're teaching your kids these skills too, I know for me, my son is autistic. And so I have to show him the way I want it done always the first time, because he'll do it
Mm-hmm.
however I show him the first time, he will always do that. And he is
Mm.
not able to adjust. So like I need to think of all the steps that I want him to do as a grown up
Mm. Mm-hmm.
when I teach him the skill. And there's no reason we can't also use that sort of framework when we're having these conversations with our spouses.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how also you mentioned that their life happens and you can take over for each other. And this sort of reminded me that these seasons of overwhelm that we have different times in our lives and different seasons, like this back to school season that we're dealing with now, where things can
Mm-hmm.
be more chaotic than other times. And there's just certain phases of life where overwhelm is and busyness is more present. And
Mm-hmm.
what do we do in those situations as moms when we really can't control the external? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. And how do we get through those times a little easier?
Yeah. You go back to your values and you really prioritize what is important in this moment, in this day, in this season. And you have those conversations with your partner and your family. So it might be, as you're getting used to the back to school routine, things aren't as clean as you would prefer them to be.
Mm.
But you're, adjusting and everybody's tired and cranky. We're in our second week of school, and one of my kids has been homesick most of this week. So that has been kind of an adjustment for my husband and I both work from home. So it's trading off like who's going to sit and kind of be willing to be interrupted if she needs something, and who has stuff that need, meetings or something that needs to happen where we don't want to be interrupted, and who's feeding her lunch, and being able to just kind of tag team that. And it's going to be different than if both kids are in school for the week. It's what Fair Play calls a glitch in the matrix. It's kind of, your best laid plans, and then there's a snowstorm and your kids are home, or the power goes out, or something happens and things are tossed up in the air. And now you need to have those conversations. And if it's a bigger illness, or like back to school season, or maybe even the holidays where things are just busier for some reason, what really matters right now? Like, how many times I feel like in August I was getting into the like, okay, we'll just deal with that after school starts. It's like the December, like I'll deal with it in January, kind of like I'll just push this off because right now this task is not important and it can wait. And then when things quiet down a little bit, if that happens, then you can come back to that task. And so it's just constantly evaluating what is important today or in this moment, what really makes sense, and giving yourself lots of grace, because we're human and we're going to mess up and we're going to make the wrong choices, and something might get missed, and that's okay too. And just being able to check in with ourselves and our partners to make sure at least the big things are getting done, then I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that piece about grace and permission to permission to take on less, let things slide, give yourself a little bit of grace, as not everything is going to be perfect all the time, and certainly not in every situation, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like to ask my guests, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received when it comes to, and it could be something that you learned within the Fair Play method, but a piece of advice that you would like to share with all of the listeners?
Oh my goodness.
I
I
know.
feel like you asked me that question. I'm like, who's ever given me advice? I
Yeah,
just forgot
same.
everything anybody ever told me.
Uh-huh. Or something that you wish everyone would know, like just
Yeah.
something to share.
Yeah. I think it's that evaluate piece. It's that really understanding that life changes with the seasons as our kids get older, as we change, and being able to take a few minutes, even just a few minutes. Like, I'm not asking for a whole life overhaul, but just to really check in with yourself and understand, like, is the what we're doing now how we want to be living, and is it working for us? And if not, what tweaks can be made for that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Because we do have the power to make those changes. We
Hmm.
often feel
Yeah.
powerless with life sort of moving us along. And then if we don't stop to really check
Hmm.
in and say, is this what I wanted life to feel like? Is this how I
Hmm.
want it to look? I
Hmm.
love that. I love that.
Yeah.
If people are listening and wanting to learn more from you and be in your world, because there's so, I love your energy. You're so calm, you're so knowledgeable. You've got this framework that works really well and it makes so much sense in terms of this fair play method. Like, how could people keep in touch with you? Where should we send them?
Yeah. Head to my website, which is strideproductivity.com. You can find out how to work with me, connect with me on social media, kind of everything you want to know will be on that one website.
Amazing. We'll make sure that's in the show notes for everybody, along with other links on how you can follow Valerie on social media and LinkedIn and all the places. And I'd really love it if you find both of us on Instagram, perhaps, or LinkedIn, and tag us and let us know in a message or in a comment what resonated with you from this episode as you're
Mhm.
listening, because there were so many great tips and tools provided today. And I'm always so curious, what are the nuggets that hit home? So if you're on social, hit us up, let us know what you thought of the conversation today. And so, Valerie, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, yeah. And until next week, listeners, keep on growing like a mother.